Welcome back to We Bought a Mic, a podcast about movies, television, music, and hitting men.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait, I read that wrong.
Yeah.
It's about...
What's hit space, man?
Right.
Yeah.
We're talking Hitman. But before we do, we're going to talk about some other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
You know, if I didn't think this movie was good, I would say I would have led with something like Hitman, more like the movie Shit Man.
Oh. More like I'm going to put out a hit piece on this man. The man's Richard. Dickie Links.
Is that not a Letterboxd review? That's got to be someone's
Hit
like
man,
snarky.
more like shit man. Yeah.
Hitman, more like flop dude.
Welcome to the show.
Okay.
My name's Ernest.
I am officially active for Game 5. My name is Hunter. My name is Kristaps Porzingis.
And I'm Druka Doncic.
If you're not watching on the YouTube, Hunter is actually in full Boston Celtics jersey mode.
Yeah. It's Game 5 tonight. Boys, I'm feeling.
Yeah.
I won't say I'm feeling
got
confident because I never feel confident.
He's got the green sweat shorts on.
They're gray.
Got
They're an accent.
He's got his Loca Under Armour sneakers on.
Yes. Listen, I'm ready to go. Okay.
Were you
I've been waiting
Were
for
you
this.
hooping before coming over?
I might have been. I might have torn my other ACL on the way over here today.
God.
Because there were some kids who were talking smack and like I wasn't going to let them get away with it. Look, I'm ready to go. I've watched this team through a lot of highs and lows, and we are on a time limit so that I can watch them try and finish the goal here tonight.
Yeah, we are on a bit of a crunch today.
We got to stretch this episode out so fucking thin.
I will leave. I will just walk out into the other room. I swear to God.
All right, so we are talking Hitman, but before we do, big story in the world of movies. Last time we recorded a podcast, it was so over. But now we might be back.
I will say, I think that we all did a good job of saying like, the sky is not falling.
Right.
I think that was actually measured conversation.
That was the big headline.
Yeah.
That everyone was talking about. Whether or not we agreed with it, that's what it was.
Right.
It's over. Which wasn't the case.
And now all of our emotions are in our head, smoking cigars, raking in that cash.
Pixar just had a monster box office weekend with the release of Inside Out 2, a movie you've seen.
It is a movie.
$155 million opening weekend. I think second biggest all time behind Pixar's own record of Incredibles 2.
For animated.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Overperformed beyond expectations.
Like almost doubled what the original projections were. And granted, those were very, very muted projections. I think originally, like a few weeks ago, it was charting closer to like 120. But after all of the bombs that happened with Furiosa, with Fall Guy, that they kind of reset everything. But now between Bad Boys last week and Inside Out 2 this week, we are so back.
What does tracking mean?
It's like a vague
It's kind of like
marketing.
polling. You know, remember the 2016 presidential election? I remember how accurate that polling was. It's kind of similar to that. They used the same 538 metrics.
One of the biggest
how I personally sit by my landline all day at home hoping that Nielsen calls me.
Yeah, you want to be polled.
I pick up the phone every time it rings. Nielsen? Oh. Hey, Mom.
I think it's mainly pulling from ticket pre-sales. So they extrapolate like what the pre-sales are and they add a bunch of other data points to it.
So there's a little bit, I mean, that is one of the points. One of the other things, it kind of goes to a little bit similar to Nielsen, where they basically are just polling like houses in middle America as well as houses in major cities and saying like, hey, are you aware that this movie is coming out? Do you have interest in seeing this movie? There's a really good episode of The Town, not to give free plugs to other podcasts, but
God damn it.
different enough.
Damn it.
From a couple weeks ago where they talk about kind of this
you mean
active,
from Puck?
Yeah, from Puck. We aren't saying the R word here on this, the R podcast network. No, where they kind of talk a little bit about like how tracking works and how they gauge interest. In that conversation, it's a lot about like for studios to know like if we should spend $20 million on this movie or $120 million on this movie. But it's the same type of thing for tracking. Like for Barbie last year, if you think back to that, there's a reason why that number kept going higher and higher and higher as the weeks were leading up to it, is because general awareness kept growing because of all the marketing everywhere, and then it became like they couldn't set the bar high enough.
So, how was the movie?
My emotion of joy felt happiness while watching it. No, so here's the thing about Inside Out 2. If you like the first Inside Out, then you will like Inside Out 2. The reason for that being that this is basically just the same movie as Inside Out over again. It's kind of just about like learning like, hey guys, you know what's all of our emotions are important to have, and like no one emotion's really more important than the others. And that worked well the first time that you see it in Inside Out. And it doesn't work quite as well trying to just play that same track over again. Now, the circumstances are a little bit different. There's new emotions. Riley, the young girl, is now 13. And most notably, there's the inclusion of Maya Hawke as anxiety. And I think that it's a little bit of a mixed bag. I will say, giving this movie some credit, I don't think it's nearly as emotionally resonant as the first Inside Out, but I do think it is a lot funnier than the first Inside Out.
Wow.
Like, there's actually some, like, incredible laughs.
You rewatched the first one before going?
Yeah, rewatched it about a week or two ago. I love the first Inside Out. That's like one of my favorite Pixar movies, honestly. It's in the top echelon.
Well, this was my first thought when the news started really breaking about Inside Out 2 taking off, is that Inside Out, I think, did well, correct? At the box office?
It did well, but it wasn't a smash hit.
Yeah, but I think it has steadily gained a following because it's just a super agreeable movie. It's very, very likable. Kids like it. All age groups like it. It's not like it's like a Mario IP style. Like, it's for the millennial parents with young kids. It's just like an all age group, kind of classic Pixar thing. So I think it just gained a lot of steam like over the years. What, it's been like 10 years?
9. Yeah.
9 years. And the thing getting back to that about what makes the Inside Out so special, and really what makes Pete Docter so special as a filmmaker, is that Pete Docter,
as a filmmaker, everyone,
his whole work. Is he
shit
the
about
bad one?
Pete?
No. You might be thinking of John Lasseter.
Yeah.
No. Pete Docter, who is now.
I was thinking of Louis C.K.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
You're thinking of Kevin Spacey.
Yeah.
They often get those two mixed up.
Is Harvey Weinstein in this one?
Yeah. Harvey Weinstein plays Lust.
Oh God.
No, the thing that makes Pete Docter a great filmmaker in these animated movies, especially like the perfect partner for Disney, and the reason why he took the Lasseter job as the head of the animation department, is because he's like, let's whittle this thing down to its core, and like, what do we do best? Emotions. He might have taken that to the extreme with 2020 Soul, which is just like not a movie for kids. Like, that is him just kind of making an adult movie to give you an existential crisis. I don't really know what enjoyment a 7-year-old could have from Soul, but this movie does not have Pete Docter at the helm. It instead is made by the guy who made The Good Dinosaur.
Kelsey Mann.
So good for them. I have not seen The Good Dinosaur. Haven't heard awesome things about it, I will say. So good for them. I'm glad that they are having a smash hit. It is a good, fun family summer movie that I walked out of it and I thought like that was fine, and I'm not really in any hurry to revisit it. It's one of those movies that you do see where it's like, I don't think that we entirely needed this. Well, but I wasn't mad watching it.
In the story of Pixar, it's a big deal because famously they put 3 movies in a row back to back, all straight to Disney Plus. You mentioned Soul. The other 2 are Luca and Turning Red.
Yeah. And Turning Red is such a tragedy that went straight to Disney Plus, because I think that movie could have been a massive hit.
Great movie. Sure. Yeah.
Great movie.
And then they try to come back with Lightyear. Lightyear, obviously pandemic, but
terrible movie.
2022, I feel like, this was the year of Top Gun Maverick. Like, I don't know if there was a major excuse for the underperformance of Lightyear, but $50 million opening compared to the Inside Out 2's $150 million opening. I mean, Lightyear's entire run
it was 150?
118.
118.
That's an entire domestic run, 218 worldwide. That's the big play. I mean, it's the story of the real Buzz Lightyear that the toy is based on.
But have you seen Lightyear?
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay. So I think that another problem is, and we talked about this also whenever we were doing the Blockbuster talk last week, so I don't want to regurgitate too many points. The problem with Lightyear is that movie sucks, and it's not for adults or for kids.
It's a whiff.
It's just a whiff. And sometimes like audiences aren't as stupid as a lot of times we think that they are. Sometimes people, like, maybe they're dumb, but they still want to be entertained. And if a movie isn't entertaining, then like people aren't going to go see it. They're going to spend their money. They're going to spend $60 to $80 for them and their entire family to go to the movie theater.
Yeah,
Inside Out 2.
I don't know one person who like heard the premise of Lightyear and was like, okay, tell me more.
Get into that.
Oh, the real life Lightyear? So and then you like go around to first graders and they're like, oh my God, the real life Lightyear?
Just to preview our Toy Story pod coming to a podcast feed near you. Do you think revisiting the original Toy Story that the movie Lightyear fits into the world? Like,
no.
Like, do you see
Lightyear?
And could you go for like 45 minutes on this?
Here's the thing: is that Lightyear is like the most desperate cash grab that Pixar has like ever done.
But the thing is
more than even making a sequel to an Inside Out.
Do you think that in the world of Toy Story, it's also a cash grab that didn't work out?
Damn.
Like
I heard that they're going to put out like sort of like a Hearts of Darkness style
making of.
Yeah, but it's about the making of the making of.
Right.
Oh yeah. It's about the real person who made Lightyear, the person who the movie is made.
But it's a cartoon.
Yeah.
Right. The toy is actually based on the actor who played Chris Evans Lightyear.
Mm-hmm. It's like
documentary.
Norbit, but Chris Evans. He's playing every character.
Yeah. Okay. It's the Polar Express.
And every line is him explaining what's going on.
Would Lightyear have been better if Chris Evans would have given it the Polar Express treatment, where he's like, I'm the black girl too. I'm all the characters.
Hank's really snapped on that one. You know,
Polar Express?
Yeah, it makes sense.
We're gonna have to add that to the series, just to like really have like the button in to like.
He didn't play the black girl.
No, he didn't play. That's the one character that he didn't.
For a second, I believed you.
It's the one character that like he does not play.
Robert Zemeckis did that himself. He was like, I got this.
That was Chet Hanks.
No, getting back to Inside Out 2 though, I think that this movie actually does have like some artistic merit to it. Which I know feels like I'm not asking for a lot, but I was entertained while watching this, even if I was a bit frustrated in like some of the aspects. It's a kid's movie. I don't think that it does enough to be where Pixar is at its best, when it's doing its Inside Out, when it's doing its Ratatouilles. It has the ability to surpass like family fare that's fun and entertaining and become something that is deeply profound. I don't think this movie gets across the threshold there, but it's entertaining enough. The movie itself is much more of an ensemble of characters than the first one. Like just getting to the plot of the movie.
No Bill Hader. He
was replaced by Tony Hale though.
Forky.
So you know, that's not like much of a downgrade.
I just figured they would just shuffle out that character. What was that character?
Fear.
Yeah.
Fear.
Like
fear
maybe,
remains.
Maybe Riley doesn't fear anymore.
Riley only gets anxious. There is some very, very well executed teenage cringe shit. Like there is some kind of stuff of like, there's one scene in particular that I don't remember if this is any of the promotional materials or anything like that, but it's her like, she goes to a hockey camp and is like trying to get in with the cool kids because she's about to go to high school for the first time. And like her friends that she currently has are going to a different school. So she's got to make new friends. And there's this point where she's in her own head and she's like noticing the way that her arms are moving as she's walking. And she's like hyper aware of like what she's doing. And like all the emotions in her head are going crazy. And that is like an exact thought cycle that I would have had whenever I was 13.
Yeah.
I will say, I'm interested in the boy version of this story to see this in a 13-year-old.
It's called Big Mouth, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's about jacking it.
Where's the horniness? Which emotion is horniness? I don't want to see that. To clarify that for the FBI and for everyone at home, I don't want to see that with a girl or with a child at all. But yeah.
So
Do you think the feds will
Dibbery,
believe me? Was that believable?
The one guy, he just keeps taking the controls and like Googling Jessica Alba boobs.
That's literally what my Letterboxd review was Jessica Alba hot.
Really?
Which emotion caused that?
Io is envy. Good.
Yeah, she's good. Really Maya Hawke's anxiety
Steals
is the
show.
stand. Yeah, I mean, she kind of takes over as the like bad guy in the movie. She like tries to take over and is just like, no, the only way
Hijacking
that
everything.
the only way that Riley will be cooler in new school is that she has to like overthink and overplan every little thing.
I'm seeing Paul Walter Hauser as embarrassment.
I didn't even clock that he was Paul Walter. That was Paul Walter Hauser. Okay. He doesn't have a ton of lines. Embarrassment.
How many?
because he's so embarrassed.
How many times can we chop up these emotions into like two kind of similar emotions?
That's
you know what
kind
I mean?
of what the movie is. That's kind of where the message gets to a little bit. Again, it's kind of the same thing as the last movie, where it's just like, sometimes in order to be happy, you have to be sad first, and like that's what I mean
do they
about
have the balls in this one. The orbs?
Yeah, they got orbs.
Okay, good.
They also,
I love that.
I will say,
I thought that was pretty novel.
the beginning of this movie and the ending of this movie, they really nailed it. The beginning of this movie, because they have the orb still, but also as you're getting into your teenage years, they have this visual idea, this idea that you get as you get older, which is beliefs, and it's a belief tree
Not
that
just
comes
memories.
together. Yeah, it comes together to like make who you are, and like it's through these acts that you do that you come to like having certain beliefs about yourself, about others, of just like, I'm a good person, I'm a good friend, and how those beliefs can then get distorted through new memories, and how maybe can who we are as people change, or is that still like kind of rooted in there?
Good stuff for kids.
The way the way that's visualized is super cool, very, very beautiful. Big knock for me in this movie, no Michael Giacchino on the score.
Okay.
They bring back the main theme, the dun 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 dun, but the score is not as good. It's overall, it's a good movie. I give it like 3.5 stars. I enjoyed it, especially if you have family. I would recommend it. If you are an adult, check it out on Disney Plus. Unless you really love the first one, then go see it.
One thought I had about more so the first movie is how well the casting of Amy Poehler as Joy has aged.
Incredible.
Because like Joy is not the strongest bellwether of what we should be feeling all the time. Like that's kind of the main message of that first movie. So to pick like Leslie Knope as your avatar to show like, okay, this is how constant positivity, unchecked positivity can kind of be a bad thing, especially for children.
And that's one of the
it's aged well.
That's one of the aspects of the first Inside Out also that has aged so well, especially as like I've gotten older and like started to get to like closer to hot dad's age than to Riley's age, is like that whole idea of putting this pressure on your child that like I've seen it all the time. I think that we all kind of grow up with it in some kind of way or another. It's just like, kid, you just got to put on a brave face. I know that we're doing all these things, but like, I just need you to be my happy little boy, and like not actually allowing kids to express themselves, not giving them that runway to express themselves. I think that's like more of like a millennial Gen Z thing, that people are becoming more open with that than they did whenever we were growing up. But I think like that is such a cool idea to put into a Disney movie.
So that's Inside Out 2. Stay tuned for more Pixar thoughts in a future episode very soon. We covered Toy Story. Before I go, anything else you guys want to? I'll throw the ball at you. You want to talk about anything, Drew?
Man,
Eric Andre live. You got 40 minutes on that?
It was honestly no. He barely had 40 minutes. It was fun. It was about what I expected. You know what I mean? It was like very unstructured and chaotic, and it was a lot of fun. I had a good time. It was like talk show format. he brought up like people from the audience and kind of cooked them. Really, the
up to the stage.
Yeah, the highlight of it was toward the end of the show. He brings up this really peculiar guy who sort of
Bannister.
Yeah, he sort of looked. His name's Bannister, Banny. He looks like an evil version of our friend Colin.
Nice,
like super long hair.
Wow.
And he's
sure it wasn't Claudio.
He just likes himself a little bit too much.
No, he looked a little bit closer to like the lead singer of Mayday Parade.
Okay.
Yeah. So, so Eric is making him do a bunch of like goofy shit, and he's putting him through the ringer, and this guy's like handling it, and it's like getting boring because this guy's like really comfortable being on stage because he's so just like, oh, yeah, I'm Banny. And then Eric he asked him about his relationship, and the dude's like, oh yeah, I just got out of one actually because her green card expired, and so she had to leave to Colombia.
Whoa.
And Eric forced this guy to give him his phone so that he could text her. And he texted her, and she started responding, and it's up on like the big screen behind them.
Yeah, they like got his phone and put it on the projector behind.
It's on the projector, and he just he FaceTimes this girl, and she picks up, and she was not in Colombia.
Oh,
he lied. She was actually in
Jacksonville.
Yeah, still in Jacksonville. And it turns out at the very end, she was literally in a car with like her new boyfriend.
Yeah, that checks out.
It was great. The
best part though was whenever Bannister first went up on the stage, there's like this one guy in the crowd who's like, fuck you, Banny, you piece of shit. And then as it's coming up and the zone's talking, they're like, why did you guys break up? And she's like, oh, because he's an asshole. That's why we broke up.
Mm-hmm. He's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
He also,
this guy called it.
Eric made him Bob for apples, like in pudding.
Okay.
And then when he FaceTimed the girlfriend, he was like, look at Banny. He's in blackface. Why is he doing that?
That's really good.
So some good Eric Andre stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
Threw a lot of shit around.
Nice.
You got any thoughts on Beefy Bryson's comeback story?
Hunter, you're just begging for this to go long.
No, I know. I can't get into this right now.
All-time U.S. Open golf ending yesterday.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
All time.
It was great.
One of the...
It was amazing.
It's rare that you get simultaneously one of the biggest chokes ever and one of the most clutch shots ever. Like, usually it's one or the other to decide a tournament. They both happened.
Let me just say, yesterday I was like made steak sandwiches. I was drinking an IPA and watching golf, and I was like, this dad thing ain't so bad. I think I'm ready. Happy Father's Day to me. Honey, get in here.
Yeah. New
Let's do
house.
Yeah. We got a guest bedroom. What if we didn't? What if it was a nursery?
Oh
no. I have
little
too much
minion
debt
baby
for that. No, I will. The only thing that'll allow this podcast to keep going on is if you guys just have like a good 30 minutes on thoughts on the NBA playoffs as a whole.
I mean, we're going to watch game 5.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's been, I think this has been a disappointing playoffs just because it was really predictable that the finals were going to go this way. I can't, it's hard to explain.
You're talking about the Dallas piece?
Yeah, man, they shouldn't have made it this far.
Oh, you're talking about just the NBA finals, not the playoffs as a whole.
No,
They
yeah.
were gonna get there.
No, but the fact that Dallas made it over teams that matched up way better with Boston is kind of a bummer. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, and if in the finale of Survivor where it's like, well, I know who the fuck's going to win this one.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there was a little bit of rock, paper, scissors that happened between Dallas, Denver, and Minnesota, because those are like the 3 clear best teams in the West. I still think Dallas is a great team. I think that like it is almost getting lost now because of like how great Luka is and how great Dallas is. But I'm just here. I'm nervous because anything could happen, and like we could witness this team be the first team to ever blow an 0-3 lead in
They would
the NBA
too.
playoffs. God damn it, that would happen. But like, this has been like the most fun that I have ever had since I started seriously watching basketball.
You're going to hold up your fucking chips.
Oh yeah, you got
Listen, there were some dark days. I started watching the Celtics, or I started watching the basketball like whenever I was younger, but really
Hold on.
in
Hold it up
college.
again. I'm going to zoom in.
Okay, can you zoom in on the Tatum
Thank
chips?
you. Thank you for that.
Listen, I remember the Jared Sullinger, Chris Humphreys, Avery Bradley, Boston Celtics. Hope you like it hot. Great chip. Honestly, awesome chip.
That was the shot.
They're good chips.
Really good chip.
Tune into the YouTube to see a close up of Hunter munching on some Tatum yums.
They're
Or
Tatum
Tate
yums. Tate yums.
That's not what it's called.
Tatum, he's got to get better as a personality. He's not very good in any of these commercials he's done so far.
How about Jason?
We'll see how
Jason Tater.
Jason's Taters.
Jason's Taters.
Come on, Ruffles.
Come on, what are we doing?
Let's get that sponsorship.
Listen, I've
are these
seen
the same ones
shit.
we had at your house? Okay,
they're spicy.
They're very spicy.
They're good.
Hunter's addicted to these fucking chips.
Listen. I would buy these even if they didn't have Tatum on them.
Mm-hmm.
I love these chips.
Hunter's got that red 40 stare.
We'll see what happens tonight. I wish the Tatum and the boys the best.
Thank you. We're watching it together, so you better be. If I hear like a "Let's go, Mavericks,"
we all
me, then I'll.
Okay, I have a little treasure trove of television that I would like to crack open real quick here.
We're going long, baby.
Well, okay, I will say we're about to reach the halfway point of the year. So we are going to have like a mid-year check-in pod where a lot of stuff is going to get brought up, movies and TV and music. It's going to be a big deal. We'll have our resident musical guest, Danny, join us for that. But there's a chance that some of these might not get drafted. And I think we're at a good point in the year in TV because it's felt like kind of nothing has come out. I mean, we've had a couple good things like Fallout and Shogun and Ripley, but it feels like right now it's like, okay, summer TV is here. And there's 3 shows I want to talk about real quick: House of the Dragon, The Boys, and The Acolyte. So this is kind of your slop. This is kind of like your blockbuster slop on the small screen. But there's a range here. These represent like kind of the broad spectrum of slop that you can get in a weird way. Not that there's necessarily excellence and trash here, but I think I want to kind of talk through my feelings of them and what they represent right now. House of the Dragon, I think, is my favorite of the 3, but I think The Boys is the best of the 3.
Whoa!
And The Acolyte, I'll get to that one last because I have some complicated thoughts on that one. Okay. But House of the Dragon,
I'm curious about that one.
House of the Dragon premiered last night, first episode, and I found myself struggling to remember like where we're at in this world. It's been 2 years since the first season. So very quickly I had to look up a little fucking article explainer to be like, wait, who's she related to? And who's that son? And who's that guy?
Well, it doesn't help that the first season of House of the Dragon, there's like 6 time jumps and different actors playing characters, and that to have to wrestle that all up in there in the noggin.
I think that there's going to be more of that, of just catching yourself up to understand what's happening. But I like watching it just from you can see the money on the screen. And just from that point of view of like, wow, the fucking budget is here and we are putting things on the screen that look incredible. It's more than you can say for most television.
There's an ancient Mulaney bit about that from back. It's not even recorded on video. It's on like just audio.
Talking about Game of Thrones?
No, him talking about some movie that cost like $100 million to make. And he's like, you could actually just charge me $15 to like go in a room and just look at a pile of $100 million. And it'd be way easier.
Right. I think there's a lot to love here because you can tell it's very well made and you can tell that these performers are putting in the work. I think that there's just a bit of an emotional disconnect. But I find it very watchable, even if I struggle to kind of find my footing. Care. Yeah, I find myself swaying and being like, oh, wait, are we going to fall off the track here? We don't quite fall off the track. I think it was a strong start. But even if I'm watching something that's incredibly well put together, there's still a bit of a remove where I'm like, I'm not quite as invested as I would like to be.
I think that's kind of where I was with a lot of House of the Dragon season 1. We did an episode on it. I think me, you, and Brett, I want to say. And like, as that season goes further and further, I did care a little bit more. But for a lot of it, it's like, I mean, this kind of looks like Game of Thrones, but like it doesn't really feel like Game of Thrones. Like I don't have as much fun.
It's a well-realized world. Like they render the world in a believable way.
I want them to lighten the fuck up this season.
I doubt it.
God damn it.
No.
That was like one of the best things about Game of Thrones is just like
it's more serious.
It is much more freeing. It's much more about just like,
I mean, you got Tyrion, you got like
and you don't even necessarily need like the comedic characters. You just need like even just like the Hound and Arya going on a journey.
Some
together.
fun,
It's just some more fun. And this show is like so dour.
No, I mean, a war is about to break out, like a civil war. Like these people, this family is about to murder each other. It's not fun. But I do think it is incredibly well made, and I find myself drawn to it. It's weird because it's not like I am invested in it, but I am drawn to it. Mm-hmm. So I'll keep watching it for sure. It was one of my most anticipated things of the year. So I was, there was some excitement there. I'm not disappointed. I just, it's not quite what it could be if they kind of tweaked a couple things, which they might. We'll see where the season goes. The Boys is back for season 4. The experience of putting on this show is weird to me because I feel like when I went to go click play on it, I didn't want to click play on it. I was like,
wow.
I finished Lost. I just did a full watch through of Lost. I ran out of episodes of Lost.
Tragedy.
I could go to Survivor, which by the way, I did start Kagayan.
Nice. Let's fucking go.
We're not. We're at the tribe swap, but we're not at the merge yet. So we'll get there. But I'm feeling like, why am I gonna go watch The Boys? Like I feel like I don't want to watch this. I'm just kind of doing it out of obligation almost. And then I start watching it, and I'm like, okay, this is a fucking great show. This is so well made. This is so well written. It's sharp. It's witty.
I know. It's very like. When I think about The Boys, it's really easy to roll your eyes at it and be like, "Ooh, epic bacon sauce!"
Yeah,
like it's such a Reddit show,
Yeah,
but it's entertaining. I mean, speaking, for fucking TV, you see the money,
right?
You hear the money in those sound drops.
Violence. Oh yeah, the music.
Yeah, and it's generally a well-run show, even if. I've sort of felt it losing steam for a little bit now.
Well, I gotta say, this new season, there's something about it that doesn't feel like they're kind of retreading the same ground necessarily. It does feel like they are going a bit closer to our reality. Like they did basically the Trump trial subplot. They're gonna do a January 6th subplot.
Yeah,
like, there are things that are getting like very, very just kind of like a duplicate of our world events.
Do we like that? Is that good? I don't know if I want that.
I like the fact that the show continues to very blatantly make fun of a certain sector of America.
Yeah.
And so unabashedly.
That came to a head at the end of last season.
Yeah.
When Homelander just straight up like just fucking kills a bunch of dudes.
Right.
People are like, yeah.
Exactly.
That is the metaphor for the Trump thing.
I could shoot someone.
Yeah. And just get away with it. They'd applaud.
Exactly. Yeah. So they kind of continue that thread in this new season.
We need a Comey superhero.
Where's my Fauci superhero?
Oh God.
He jabs you.
I don't think the show has quite fallen into that trap of, doing the Hillary.
No, I don't think so. Cause it was
please clap, whatever.
I mean, I haven't seen this season yet, but it was always laying it on thick. You know what I mean? It always had plenty of parallels, and even it was focusing more on an industry parody,
right?
Like a movie industry, like a Disney, like commentary on that as opposed to strictly politics.
But it's also connecting that to
the
the
military and industrial complex
and religion.
Yeah, it just now it's like more that less, you know what I mean? Like they're not just at fucking Voss. What is it? Voss?
Vought.
They're not just at like Vought HQ shooting movies anymore. Like things are awry.
But I mean, even more than that, I think it's to its credit while watching the show and to like the show as a whole, but almost to its detriment whenever like you are more removed from it and time away from it, is the extremity. This movie is all about going to the nth degree and see the fucking hero-gasm episode from last year for like the example where it's like,
what's the gross?
Yeah, they want to go like as hard R as they possibly can and that's what kind of makes it a little bit have that like epic sauce quality to it, where it's just like they're like doing it all because they can, because they're Amazon,
right?
And it's like
there's still some of that.
Yeah, but I also think that is kind of what makes the show special, even if that's not necessarily like something that I'm going to the show to watch, because I'm not like
it's the only place anymore where you can see that kind of stuff.
You can go into a pee-pee hole.
Yeah. There's a scene in this season where you have a guy who can duplicate himself. So obviously he is going to human centipede eat himself out.
Let's go.
As you would.
Right.
I think if I were to point to one thing that I think is consistently holding the show back a little bit, because when I think back to season 1, what I'm enjoying is the side characters the most.
Oh no, don't come after our boy.
I think Huey and Starlight are the two worst characters on the show.
No, not Jack. I think Jack Quaid.
I think their performances are lacking. I think their characterization. I think the show really needs like grounded characters like that to just maintain some sense of like being in the world. But I just don't think that these two are it. Like it, and it's.
I can agree with that.
And it's not. It doesn't like doom the entire show. It just, when I think of the first season, one of the things I talked about the most was the potential of this universe that they created. And so I guess, eventually you do have to come down on something in some like larger plot, right? Like, you know what I mean? But it felt like the early seasons were brimming with more ideas than season 3.
Well, to compare it to House of the Dragon, I think that the reason why I gravitate towards House of the Dragon a little bit more is because I want to be in that world more, and I want to kind of be embedded in the plot machinations of that story, even if I'm not connecting to the characters as much as I would like to. Mm-hmm. And that show has amazing performers I can see their performances even if I'm not feeling them. With The Boys, it's kind of the inverse, where I don't really know or understand or care about the plot and the world as much, but the characters I feel really connected to. Yep. And even if I do agree that some of them are weaker than others, I'm still invested in what's going to happen to them, and I still care about them, to varying degrees. And I think the thing that this season has going for it is the potential redemption arc of A-Train, we shall see, and the son, the little boy, Homelander's kid, kind of seeing where that character is going to go, and if he is going to go to the dark side or the light side. I think that's, even if that kid is not necessarily the best actor, I think that that's a good foil for both Butcher and Homelander to carry out their respective arcs, because those two are the most compelling characters when I'm watching the show. So yeah, I've only seen, I think, 2 episodes. I think 3 dropped, and we'll get a 4th one this week. So are
they doing the break in between season?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't think The Boys does that. No.
I thought that they did that last year. Maybe I'm thinking of Invincible.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I thought The Boys like dropped 4 episodes and then released them weekly, or did some kind of, Amazon always has weird release strategies. I can't remember what they're doing.
They did announce that the 5th season will be the final season, which I think is a good call.
Yeah. You don't want to let this show go on for 10 seasons.
Because it does feel like we are hitting some kind of major climax here. And I would hate to see them just spin the wheels for no reason. lastly, I wanted to shout out The Acolyte, which is Star Wars on Disney Plus. Back when this show was first announced a long time ago, it seemed like it was like a pin on the board that was like, all right, when this is coming, it's going to be something different. It's going to be something outside of everything else that we've seen with Star Wars. And now it's here. And yes, technically it is set in a different timeline, 100 years before the events of The Phantom Menace. But it doesn't really feel that different. Like, there's not that much aesthetically separating it from all the other Star Wars TV that we've seen, even if the events of the story are taking place in a completely different time. But the reason why I wanted to bring it up is because, Star Wars is in a very interesting place right now where they're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel a little bit here. I feel like the majority of people are feeling like the lemon has been squeezed almost entirely.
Yeah, people hate this show. Right. People are like coming out of the woodwork against this thing. Like, this is the worst shit that was ever put to TV.
That's what I wanted to talk about is, this is a show created by Leslie Headland, who did Russian Doll, a show I love, a great show. And they have gone out of their way to do something different. It does not have anything to do with any of the characters that we know from core Star Wars, from the Skywalker saga. Entirely new story, and specifically entirely diverse cast. So there's basically no white people in this show. The lead actor is a black woman, and the entire ensemble is all people of color, almost entirely. Namely, a homeboy from Squid Game, who plays a Jedi Master. Probably the best part of the show, giving an actually like emotional performance in a show that really is lacking in that department. But yeah, very negative reception from the fan base. Like, I spend a little too much time on Facebook, more than I would want, and I get served a lot of like random fucking Star Wars groups and pages on my feed. And whenever this show comes up and I look at the comments, it is blatant, just off the walls, crazy racist shit. It is insane. And people are review bombing this thing. Yeah, exactly. And they are just turning on this show. This is also from all angles.
So this creates a really common conundrum that you run into, which is the feeling the need to defend it,
defend a mediocre product,
just because it's being over shit on. Even if it's not incredible, you might feel the need to like, exaggerate how good it is.
It's insane. It's a very mid show. There is potential. Like, we'll see where the season goes, but there's nothing in it where I can grab onto and be like, this is why it's great. Like, it doesn't have that. It has interesting things that it's doing that are different, that feel like it's trying to do something, but it sucks because people are turning on it in bad faith, and there's a lot of ammunition to throw at the show in terms of just things that it's not doing well. But I just think it's fascinating that the tidal wave of negative criticism towards the show it feels unstoppable. It's like, holy shit, and Disney has a track record of listening to this type of stuff. See The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, I was gonna say this same racism came out for The Last Jedi. However, that's a good movie.
Right. Exactly.
So sort of there was a little bit more of a defense.
So it sucks because, in my head, I was thinking this might be another Andor. This might be another thing where it's like it got away from them in a good way. They weren't able to kind of keep it in the content sludge bucket, and it actually became something great. That's not what it is. It's still very much like
it's slop.
Yeah, I would say it's better than like Ahsoka and Book of Boba Fett.
Literally, what are you even talking about, dude?
Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's better than Kenobi.
Right, exactly.
I mean, at least this has like something interesting to it. I think that the Kenobi show is like, that is when they should have just like stopped these. They should have just canceled everything moving forward, because that is like,
Well,
the lemon has been juiced at that point.
Oh, I mean, at Marvel, they're getting the mandate of, put a stopper in it. Like, don't have the tap on full blast. So the same thing might be coming to Star Wars, because it's not working.
Yeah.
It's not working. And even if the show is not trash, I wouldn't say it's a failure. It's at a spot right now where you have this momentum of negativity from the fan base, and there's not that much there to hold on to defend it, which is unfortunate, because you get one with all the diversity, where all the people of color are finally getting a chance to shine in Star Wars, and it's met with this level of disdain. So tough.
I think that we've just kind of told all the stories that we need to tell in that world.
Perhaps.
And I think that that's fine.
I will watch Andor season 2 though.
What race is R2D2?
He's a droid. Are you saying this is the origin of
You
R2D2?
can't say that word.
He's a robotic animatron.
Mhm.
So I cracked open my treasure trove of television, and now I'm going to close it back up. We're gonna lock it away for a little bit.
Yeah, put your slot back in its bucket.
And we're going to go to the movies on television.
Yeah, I was going to say, to a lot of, I feel like one thing that all of the shows that you mentioned and this movie we're going to talk about is that most people probably watched it while also on their phone, while scrolling Instagram.
I hope not.
It's on Netflix, so it definitely did. That's how the masses watched it, because that's how the masses watch anything.
A new
Netflix.
Richard Linklater film has arrived on Netflix. It's called Hitman,
Dick Links.
starring Glen Powell, also co-writer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I hope that this movie reaches the populace. I think it's been number one on Netflix since it came out. So I really hope that people watch it, because it's a great movie. I do wonder if it's going to do anything else besides that in terms of awards or anything like that.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't quite feel that way. But the Netflix of it all is an interesting way in, because I was talking to my parents about it, and they started it and just didn't watch it, didn't finish watching it.
You're acting like this is inconceivable.
I mean, that's the Netflix movie thing. That's what I'm talking about. That it sucks. It's both good and bad that a movie like this is on Netflix, because I do think that more people watched it because it's on Netflix. More people started it because it's on Netflix than who would have seen it in theaters.
But it's a Richard Linklater movie, so it kind of starts as being this weird vibey thing that doesn't have necessarily the narrative momentum you want from your standard Netflix slop. And your average viewer might be confused and be like, wait, what's going on? So to kind of back up, it's a story of based on a real life article in Texas Monthly Magazine of a guy named Gary Johnson.
By the way, you guys got to subscribe if you haven't.
You're tapped in?
Oh God.
Yeah.
The pieces, they have one of these guys every month.
Texas is wild, man.
Apparently Richard Linklater had been wanting to make this for a while. And then
along came
Mr. Glenn.
Glenn, who's like, hey, have you ever heard of this guy, Gary Johnson? You want to make a movie together?
They made the movie Everybody Wants Some, which came out
10 years ago.
Something
2015, something like that.
And I guess that's when you link up with the links, and they started tossing this around. And it wasn't until COVID hit where they actually started writing it together. But yeah, essentially what we get, the final product ends up being pretty different from the article, the real life story. And the movie takes a lot of great liberties in the way it tells its story, the things that it manufactures. And it's very open about the things it manufactures. And it ends up being this kind of almost like a 3-act thing where you have, like I said, this vibey opening that's kind of a broad comedy. Then it becomes a romantic comedy. And then by the end, you're pretty much in a thriller. And thus we have what I would say is a top tier movie of the year. Like
wow.
this is kind of, I mean, I haven't seen a lot of stuff this year. You know, it's kind of been a little bit of a light year, but I think I would put it in my top 5 of the year so far. I really, really love this movie. There's definitely things about it that aren't perfect that I would probably tweak a little bit, but I think the movie did a really good job of transitioning from those tones, of feeling like one cohesive movie as it unfolds itself and becomes something different as it moves through its story.
I think that a movie like this, it entirely 100% sinks or swims based on its lead. And I'm just happy to say that Glen Powell has that juice, baby. He has the juice. I think that, like, it sucks that this movie is on Netflix, but I am hoping that between Hitman and Twisters coming soon to a theater near you, we are in for like the full summer of Glen. Like,
well,
I
also,
just want it.
If something stays like number 1 on Netflix for a long time, like it is just as big as like making like $200 million in terms of exposure. Like,
yeah, exactly.
His fucking stupid
it's still their
face,
number 1. I just checked.
Yeah, his dumb face is on everyone's home screen.
Good.
And like the different,
Yeah, man.
Whenever you go on Netflix, it's a different Gary Johnson, like him in a different getup and the alternate posters. And
By the
everything.
way, just you gotta have a different name. There can't be 2 Gary Johnsons. You know what I mean? Obviously, the Libertarian presidential candidate.
Oh,
that's
right.
yes, of course, yeah.
Famous for. I was just reminded.
It was
of him.
such a unique name, like Gary Johnson. How did there end up being more than one?
Do you remember he had a campaign poster that was him, in 2016? It was him juggling on a unicycle, and it said, "Here come dat Gary."
How did he not win?
Make a movie about that.
Damn it, give me that Gary Johnson, Richard Linklater.
Come on, Richard.
No, I think that this movie, I really loved it. I think it's a movie that, like, I can definitely see the warts on it. And I could see it while I was watching it. I'm really interested to talk about the third act with you guys. And if you
we'll
think
have to do a little spoiler section.
If you think it lands the plane where it does correctly, but like, I think that it has probably my favorite scene of the year so far. It's like right there with a couple of scenes in Dune for just being like the best
Notes app
of the year. Yeah, the Notes app scene. It has just one of the best performances that I have seen this year in Glen Powell. What he is doing, like channeling these different personas, depending on who it is that he is trying to coerce into hiring him as
which
a
end
hitman.
up being very short, quick segments, but they're crazy impactful.
By the way, apparently he just he not improvised, but he like kind of came up with on the spot. Richard Linklater did not know what he was going to show up in on the day of shooting, and then Glen Powell had his own private makeup team, makeup and hairstyling team that would do him up, and then he would just show up on set and like. Richard would just be like, all right, this is what we're going with. You're doing an American Psycho thing today. Okay,
that was
cool.
the best.
The Patrick Bateman.
Oh my God.
Like, but that
I
is
lost it.
That I think that the reason why I can forgive a lot of the blemishes on a movie like this is because sometimes you can just tell when like a filmmaker and the star are just in perfect harmony with each other. Yeah. It's like a lesser version of like what we talk about, we love with the movie like Vampire's Kiss, which is just like
they're on the same page.
They know exactly the type of movie that they are making together, even if like it might be a little bit rocky and a little bit shaggy on the edges at part. You can just see the chemistry between these two. They have a perfect 1-2 game.
Do you think that it actually blemishes, or is it because we know what Linklater is capable of? Are we being a little too hard?
I don't. For me, it's not that, because I'm a little lower on this movie than you guys. And I think there are some specific choices made in the script that bother me. I still endorse this movie. Like, I recommend it. It's a great watch, especially because it's on Netflix. You know what I mean? You're not
throw it on.
You're not risking your biscuit. Yeah, it's on. It's
sexy.
It's a really entertaining movie. I think some of the things that got to me are the seeing all the million potential avenues you could go down with this base story. You know what I mean? There's so much there that it's hard not to get lost in like what you could do.
Which we haven't even said. He's helping the police by impersonating a hitman. He's not a
doing,
real
He's
hitman.
doing sting operations pretending to be a hitman. He's also like a weirdo fucking.
Yeah, he's also a philosophy professor.
He's a philosophy professor. Yeah. He's into bird watching. He's a fucking lame dude. And he ends up being really good at like busting people for hitman jobs based on a real guy in Texas. Choice number one that really kind of befuddled me. This guy was doing it in like the 80s and 90s. That's more interesting than making it modern to me. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, especially with
technology wise.
I know. Well, the thing is, he's, it plays into, I guess, the character research he does, when he's like really getting into the mind of these people, like he's using some internet so that makes sense. But no one shoots 80s and 90s like Richard. Mm-hmm. And I don't know.
Yeah, see, everybody wants some.
Yeah, I think it just would have added a sort of a wrinkle of character to the movie that would make it I don't know, maybe just a titch more interesting visually.
It does.
I don't want to just go down like a cinema sins route. No, but we should talk about what's good about it.
It does have. Well, I mean, I think that there is definitely there's shag to this movie, like 100%. I do not think this is a perfect movie. I think this is far from the best Dickie Links, but like, I think this movie is kind of a little bit of an awkward in between because like he does have internet, so you can do Facebook scenes. We wouldn't get the Notes app scene without having like modern day iPhones and shit like that. But also the fact that this is in the modern days makes you beg the question, like, what are the police doing in this world that they're just like, yeah, we have to hire part-time like philosophy teachers to moonlight as
well. It's New Orleans PD.
I guess this movie is like the cops all suck in this movie, which is like kind of a fun side aspect. Fun. I don't know.
It almost like I think that there a lot of those aspects in this almost remind me of like, and I'm not just saying this because I'm currently branded content for USA Network characters. Well, this movie reminded me of Psych a lot.
Okay,
which is a good show, a really solid show, but a show in which the police force is an absolute joke. All their actions are, they're just in a room doing bits.
So you wanted the procedural. You wanted every week a different a different sting operation.
No. It's so light and airy, especially toward the beginning. That's also a cool thing. I think that more movies should lean into being really goofy like this movie did. That's another. It shares sort of like a goofy language with the show Psych. I'm not joking. The impressions, the pop culture references, very. Dane, back me up if you're listening. I'm drowning. I need some help here.
No, but I think
it just has sort of a weightlessness to it that I think is really impressive, that then when the stakes start raising, you do feel it. You know what I mean? Because for a while there, it's just like
we're just vibing.
We're just in goofy world. Yeah. So being silly.
It's like half the movie.
We're being silly pantses.
And I was almost trying to think about like, is some of the issues that I have with this movie is whenever as much as like I do think that on their own some of the thriller parts do work, on their own some of the romance parts do work, Dickie Links at his best is just like guys hanging out and being goofy. So like almost like the Richard Linklater version of this movie is kind of fully formed. What we are seeing when it's a little bit, not necessarily plotless, but it is looser. It is more just like going around and like doing little bits and little outfits. And whenever we do get a little bit more plot heavy, I kind of can't decide what I want. If this is like, I don't think this is necessarily the best version of this movie overall, but maybe this was the best version of this movie with Richard Linklater at the helm.
Oh, that makes sense. I think Glenn was just really sort of allowed to cook on this script, and he is obviously he has a lot of great ideas and he's very funny, but he's also not a screenwriter by trade. And I think I think a lot of the time I saw the choices like being made of like, oh, so who needs to emerge as the big bad? Oh, I guess it's like the actor guy who's like scorned. He can sort of become a bigger villain. Like it's choices that like if I was thinking it through, I would make, and I don't like my own choices.
Well, I feel a confidence coming off of Glenn. Like to me, this is the arrival of Glen Powell, movie star. And we're going to look back on this movie after an incredible career and point to it as like, this is him coming out of the gate in a really confident way. And I could feel that. And even if there are problems in the movie and whether they're script problems or not, I think that what he is able to do is because he's confident in his own performance of his own writing. That's a lot of the charm of this movie, is seeing him cook on screen, knowing that he has such a close relationship with.
Yeah, I did that.
Right, exactly. there is a cocky confidence coming off of this movie, and that's part of the charm of Ron, who is the invented hitman that starts to fall in love with Madison. Let me say,
Ron might be the hottest person to ever exist. Ron, like I was when, like, you know, you have the scene with Retta and with the other actor, the other cop.
Fuck Ron.
They're just both talking about they want to fuck Ron. I was like, yeah, brother, get in line. Me too. Because Ron is like, that is sex embodied, and like that's one of the things that makes Glen Powell such an interesting actor, because much was made like post Top Gun Maverick, how like Tom Cruise kind of even over our boy Miles, like Tom Cruise like saw it in Glenn and like took him under his wing, and like Tom has since like flown Glenn around in his like plane, and like they've just like been pals.
I didn't really know this. What?
Yeah, no, they like actually like Glenn like always looked up to Tom Cruise, and like Tom kind of saw it with him, and like. So it makes sense.
Well,
that he would try and
look down technically. Glenn's pretty tall.
It makes sense that like Tom would want to take him to like the Tom Cruise school of being an A-list like movie star
Tom
actor.
Cruise school of like having a really wide jaw.
Yeah. But like, I mean, if he's going to try to get into more of the screenwriter realm, that's not something that Tom Cruise has ever done before. So like he is trying to also like be the big Hollywood A-list movie star, and then also kind of carve out this whole unique path for himself too.
Well, we should start to kind of dip our toes into more specifics and start to get a little spoilery. I'll give a official warning once we actually start to give away some stuff, but we got to mention this Madison character. So basically what happens at sort of the midpoint of the movie, I kind of want to clock the exact time code here, because I'm fascinated by if my parents are like a bellwether of your average Netflix user when these things happen in the movie. We first see Madison, let's see, 33, about around the 30-minute mark is when we first meet her at the diner. Okay, so that's a full 30 minutes of just like wacky Glen Powell showing up as another crazy hitman, fake hitman, which is great. Like I was enjoying the shit out of that. Then we're introduced to her, and the vibe is a little different. We can tell that, you know, he is not trying to get her. He's trying to help her. And basically there is a little bit of a different connection made there from all the other jobs that he's working.
Yeah, instead of like these like ugly like white trash dudes or like old women, he's like, oh shit, is that Adria Arjona? Oh my god.
He's honestly really lucky that he happened to be playing the Rizzler that day, because what if he was fucking, you know, Tommy Wiseau like he was the other time?
Well, but there's that beat before where he preps. He's basically like, who is your hitman?
Yeah, like he's
what
like,
would you like?
He's getting into it. Which again, we're on this line of like, that's really interesting, and like that's like what this guy did apparently, but then also like, so he's really thinking that, but then what he comes up with is like a Halloween costume. Like it's so
Tilda Swinton.
Yeah, which again, I appreciate that this movie is willing to go goofy, because like, you know, you just don't get much of that anymore. Like a movie that's just like, no, we can just be silly with it. It's okay.
The Florida swamp guy,
that was great,
with the neck tattoos. That was a great one.
I like the Russian dude with
the black hair.
Yeah, that's the Tommy Wiseau.
Where it's like, is he like Yugoslavian? What is that? What is he doing? What is that voice?
So then Madison comes back. The doggy date is at around the 45-minute mark. So 15 minutes later, we're already back to her.
Yeah. I gotta say, the idea of like, yeah, sure, you don't follow through with hiring a hitman to kill your husband. The fact that you're like, I don't know, though, I kind of liked him. Maybe I should like invite him out to a doggy date afterwards.
Yeah, like knowing insane. He's a contracted or thinking he's a contracted killer.
Well, she is awful taste in men.
Yeah, well,
she's
that's
coming
true.
right out of an abusive relationship, and she's
Listen,
like, my
we've all made
rebound is
toxic
going to be
choices.
an assassin.
Imagine
stupid as fuck.
Imagine thinking
We've all been there. Okay.
that you're.
No, not me. I don't know what you're talking about.
Imagine thinking.
Sometimes you marry one.
Drew, what was it like to hire?
You're lucky. You're so lucky, guy. Doesn't listen to the podcast.
Oh, guy only kills me.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, we have this middle chunk of the movie where they start to like bang, and
They're smashing like madmen. And again,
it's hot.
If you gave me this story, this is where it becomes fully off book. Like, not in a million years would I be like, this movie, this story about this guy should get really sexy. Like, what? That this girl like doesn't exist. The extent is that he did
But
convince
look at them.
I know. Well, that's what I'm saying is I think that's cool.
Mhm.
Like,
They're just two hot people, so they would bone.
no, it's just like it's an inspired choice for Glenn to be like, I want to fuck her.
I also think
And
that,
then I
like,
wrote in the script.
yeah. I also think that, like, to this movie's defense in those sequences is that you could take the stance. I think that there's more to it than that, and maybe it started from one place and then they developed feelings, but like you could take the stance of Adria Arjona, what was her name? Madison. Like the Madison character is only trying to get them because she is like has the well, are we in spoiler territory yet?
Let's start to get into spoilers.
Okay,
so we're
spoilers,
gonna have to talk about the ending of this
big
movie.
third act spoilers now because I think that ties back into this. Okay.
Spoiler alert.
Madison is only ever calls back Ron because she always had the intentions of killing her husband. The entire time she was planning on killing her husband. So like it was a ruse to even bring that guy back. Maybe she was like, yeah, he is hot and everything. But really, I want to know, like, because almost from like day one, she's like, so like, what do you do with the body?
I did not get that.
On the first date, though, she is like, so like, what do you do with the bodies after you do them? Like, so how do you kind of dispose of certain things? Get rid of
So you think
stuff?
that every single beat in the back of her head, she's thinking, I'm going to kill my husband.
I think that is a read of this movie because she does ask on that very first date. She's asking specific questions that, like, I don't know. I probably wouldn't ask that on like date number 1. Like we haven't even gone back to your house and boned yet, and you're like, so what about the teeth? How do you worry about dental?
Here's how I see it. I see this middle chunk of the movie, this to me like almost perfect balancing act between you almost forgetting the plot of the movie and just watching two hot people be hot together. And then this little trickle of like, oh yeah, he's pretending to be someone that doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. And she wants to fuck him because he's a murderer. Mm-hmm. She likes the fact that he's a killer and is attracted to him like because he kills people.
Yeah, like this, she's out of her mind.
Right.
Yeah.
So
she's crazy.
To me,
no doubt about that.
To me, I found this middle chunk of the movie like really kind of an amazing balancing act between these two things where you're kind of you have these two opposite things in your head where you're just seeing this beautiful romance blossom and these two absolute crazy people be crazy. And for some reason it works. Like I thought it worked.
It's just such a strange script. It's so bizarre, like the mix of things, because that is like they're at the root of that. There's such an insanely traditional script of like the classic, Shakespeare love under false pretenses thing of like, I'm not who you think I am. But then on top of that, we hinted a lot of really interesting like existential issues,
right?
Like
identity.
He has a really interesting conversation with his ex-wife at the school, and it's like, what movie is this?
That's a whole other.
That's a Linklater movie.
I do think that like. I think you could like kind of, if you wanted to negate, call it just like stating the message of the movie. But I really loved the scenes with his philosophy class. And I think that like that is in a lot of ways expressing like the central theme that this movie is interested in is how long do you have to like wear the mask of another person? How long are you faking another personality until that just becomes your personality?
Yeah.
This persona that you put on, eventually it's going to become you.
And do we
If
do it
you just
subconsciously
fake
or
it
not?
or make it? Yeah,
Right.
exactly. And eventually, like, at what point are those lines so blurred that you do just become Ron? You aren't Gary.
Could you become Ron?
Yeah, probably. I don't think I make enough eye contact with people though.
You don't put enough pomade
Yeah.
in your hair.
I push back.
Come on.
I don't slick back.
We got to talk about Austin Amelio as Jasper, who is this like crooked cop. Incredible guy. Like, again, another guy from Everybody Wants Some. I don't know where Richard Linklater finds these guys, but
I know.
He's the
this
best.
guy brings
That's like his single greatest gift.
Is he? What does he play in that? Does he play like Kurt Russell's son's like Tether?
he's just another one of these fucking guys.
That is Wyatt Russell, who is also just an incredible one.
No, I know, but I'm saying, does this guy play Wyatt Russell's Tether?
Like from Us.
Living Underground? Yeah.
So this guy basically is onto Ron, aka Gary. He knows that he's seeing this girl he shouldn't be. And there's a series of very pivotal scenes at the back half of this movie that really start to ratchet up the tension, where essentially I think it basically starts with the husband trying to hire the hitman. Mm-hmm. And I thought that scene in the diner was great when he confronts him after having seen him in the alley and having the gun pulled on him. He can recognize him. And then very shortly after that, finding out that this guy's been killed and the murder's been covered up the way he essentially taught her to cover it up. And you get this double punch of him coming back to her house to confront her about her being a murderer, and then her admitting it, and then him quickly unraveling the Ron persona, switching into Gary and admitting that he's not a real hitman. Mm-hmm. I thought that was all great. Like, this is really when the movie starts to kind of blow itself up. Mm-hmm. Like, you thought it was doing one thing, and it just, not that it's coming out of nowhere. It's very well set up. It's not a twist or anything, but it kind of just becomes something else entirely.
Yeah, that's fun. That's when we're like on like cruise control plot wise. It's like, oh, this all lays out really well. You know what I mean? It's all I don't know. It's like it's like the meat of it when you imagine, Glenn thinking up this plot. It's like, yeah, at a certain point he has to admit to her, and they're like on the lam basically. It works. And
then the big note sap scene comes, which is kind of the center, the major like centerpiece of the movie. I felt a little dumb watching this scene. There was a part of me that felt like, wow, this is a little too smart for where I'm at right now. I kind of hit the pendulum a little too hard for this scene, because you're basically watching 3 scenes stacked on top of each other at the same time.
I know. Honestly, they're both really high functioning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They're sociopaths.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense for him because he's been he's been acting this whole time, but like, she's cooking.
Right.
Yeah, it's excellently done. Yeah, you're getting their body language is one thing.
He's on a wire that that the cops are listening to, and he has to say things that is going to be picked up on the wire to make the cops think that one thing is happening while the real conversation is happening on text on the phone that he's showing her.
That scene is so genius. And like, I actually went back after the movie was done and just replayed that scene, which is something that, again, is like a benefit that you can do this on Netflix and you couldn't do this in a movie theater.
Just run it back.
And it's so smart that like Gary is one of the few smart people that is in this world. He's not the most observant guy in the world, because he's not picking up on the hints that like, hey, your lady that you're into might be kind of crazy and maybe you're not doing the smartest thing in the world. But he immediately, as soon as he knows, like, I have to be the one to go into action, you just see him pull out his phone as soon as he leaves the car. And he's just like, all right, I know exactly what I have to do. I have to just like pull this up and like know exactly what is going on here and just try to play this off.
Well, one thing I wanted to ask you guys, going back to the criticisms, I listened to a podcast, the Filmcast. Shout out to Jeff Kanata.
Bleep it out. Stop.
Did you intend to hit that one, or
he had a very good critique of this movie that made me think a lot. He is Gary, aka Ron. He's too good. Mm-hmm. He doesn't quite struggle enough.
No, I had the same thought. He becomes great instantly.
He's incredibly competent.
Hey, it's a little bit of Tom Cruise syndrome in your main character.
Which, you love to see a guy, like a high functioning guy, especially in sort of a, murderous situation.
I know, but it calls into doubt that he was ever a weirdo in the first place almost.
Right.
Or that he was, you know what I mean?
The real performance was Gary.
Yeah, like there's just not enough contrast because like we immediately get to know him as a guy who rocks at his job.
Yeah.
And everyone thinks he's great.
That's like, I clocked that as well, and I was just like, oh yeah, Glen Powell had screenwriting credit on this, and he didn't write himself to be enough of like a doofus. Aside from people just being like, oh god, he's a loser. I hate Gary. I'd never want to hang out with him.
Shorts.
Yeah.
And it speaks toward the weird mishmash of the movie where like it becomes so sex based, like in the middle of it, that it can't be as like ugly of a movie as I think it would be otherwise, like
especially at the end.
This is a movie that ostensibly like could be set in the past, that is set in Texas about like a fucking weirdo, you know what I mean, like
New Orleans. But yeah,
sorry,
this is a little different. The Bayou life, you wouldn't know.
They got a tax credit. That's what happened there.
Is the real guy from New Orleans?
No, he's from Austin.
Why'd they do that?
Or Houston.
Tax credit?
Yeah.
Just tax credit?
Although it's a tax credit thing, but also like New Orleans, if you're going to fall into a city, like that's kind of the perfect place to be for. It's just like
all these random hitman guys.
Yeah, the amount of just like different characters that you might see in a place like New Orleans.
Well, it also after I said that this should have been a period piece thing, I did remember this is a low budget movie. Like this, it's kind of it's not quite a COVID production, but it was conceived in COVID.
I mean,
Lynx has like never gotten a big budget.
No, and this was $8 million.
I guess School of Rock maybe was his most commercial movie.
I mean, that's easily his most successful movie.
Yeah.
I don't know what the budget on School of Rock was.
I mean, it doesn't need to be a ton.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's I'm sure it's
well,
more
I mean, you
most.
had to play Jack Black like Pick a Destiny money. So I'm sure he was.
But yeah, it's like this is a low budget movie at the end of the day, and it feels kind of COVID-y the way that like it has this self-contained like set of characters where like I don't know, it makes sense in the language of television, which to me, speaks toward it being like sort of internally like it has its own engine to it. That also does create a feeling sometimes of general weightlessness, where like with a TV show that's like that, it's like the reason that it feels weightless is because there's a next episode where everything's reset. And that's again why it's interesting that they then zag and do murders.
Well, yeah, that's what I wanted to get to.
So they kill the guy.
The very end of the movie, the notes app scene goes great. The cop is like astounded that they didn't falter. He's like, how the fuck? He's basically the audience. Like, you're too good.
And then Glenn's just like, I have to go back the same night.
Idiot.
Just classic dumb.
He goes
back
back
guy thing.
And there he is. The cop is there.
He wants to fuck.
And
he's got to go back.
He's just too horned up.
Very quickly during that scene, I knew it. I was like, this dude is done. They're gonna fucking kill him. And yeah, basically she fucking poisons his drink. Dude drops dead. And in this almost like beautiful crescendo finale, they have a romantic embrace, because at this point in the movie they're at odds with each other. They kind of got the hots for each other a little bit during the notes app scene. Like you could see it in their eyes that it was crackling again, but it was really this moment, this very tense, drawn out scene of them talking to this guy.
Well, it was, I mean, she poisoned him, but she doesn't kill him. Gary's
Right.
the one who suffocates his ass.
With the bag.
Gary has to also have the blood on his hands
Exactly.
too, because he could have in that show. It's like in that moment, in the moment before that, like there's so many moments where a traditional movie would have had like the this like love that like should never have been is now going to fall apart, and it could bring us both down or just bring one of us down. But instead, he just takes the dive and gets away with it, and that's kind of where
we get the epilogue. It's years later. They have kids. And they did it. They got away with murder and they got this happy family ending. And I feel like prologue or epilogue aside.
So tell me how, Daddy, how did you think, Mommy? It's kind of a funny story. They came together. I told you it was going to be a crazy day.
I kind of
only in New York.
I would have gotten rid of the epilogue, to be honest.
1000%, yes.
Because the movie kind of does end. You have this shot of them embracing and making out with the body suffocating in the background, and it kind of just fades to black. You could have just ended the movie there, and I would have been happy.
That would have been crazy. Sick. It also would have been riskier just because people, even in a silly, like, what, you know,
it's more artsy. Yeah,
it is. It's more artsy. It's more, you know, a lot of people would be like, what happened next though? You know what I mean?
They went out of screen now. Are they dead because they're not on the screen anymore?
That said, again, the decision for them to then kill someone is really out of left field and strange. And so, like, shouts out to Glenn for that. I think.
Well, the act becomes real. I mean, it's
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like, thematically, things get really tied together. It bounces off what he's been talking about.
Also, she's already a murderer.
Yeah,
at that point.
She's already out of her mind. She's long gone.
And she only wanted him because she thought that he was a murderer. Mm-hmm. So he's basically just becoming the person.
The
that
lesson
she
of
wanted
the story
him to be.
is like, ladies, if there's a man out there that you want, but he isn't really who you want him to be, fucking make him who you want him to be.
Mm-hmm. If anything, this is an indictment of the I can fix him trope.
Wow. It's the I can break him.
Right.
Damn.
Don't try to fix him.
It's just,
let him be a lonely cat guy.
Ultimately, I do think that is one slight downfall of the movie. I think that criticism is great, that like there's not enough. Glenn is too obviously winning and good looking and like charming that like even when he's being weird and like dressing down, you don't buy it as much. This movie, I think, ideally just needs to be shaggier and dirtier and a little darker. Mm-hmm. I think it could still be silly. The what comes to mind is Raising Arizona as like a good comp of like it's not fair to do this, but like starting with this base story, it's just so wild where he went with it, and I really respect that. Like, that is super interesting. But there are just so many places you could go here that I found myself imagining what could have been.
Well, I think the closest comp for, at least in the Linklater filmography, is Bernie. That's the only time he's gotten kind of violent with it.
What even is going on there?
Jack Black is a serial killer.
Oh, that's cool.
He's got like a bunch of bodies in the freezer or something.
I was going to say, though, like, I was thinking about it earlier whenever we were talking about, like, the Linklater of this all is, I would just be interested in seeing different filmmakers' versions of this story to see, like, what is the Coen brothers version of this movie? What is the Fincher version of this movie? Like, I think that there's so many different ways that you could take this story. And I think that the Linklater, like, this was about as good as I could have hoped for the Linklater version of the story. I don't think this is one of his best movies, but Linklater has also made like 3 of my top 100 movies ever. So like
4.
He's made 3. He's made 4 of my top, like,
yeah, actually, I forgot,
like 30 movies ever.
That's just rewatched School of Rock for the first time in like years, and man, 10 out of 10 movie.
That's perfect. And I think so. Ultimately, you are right, Ernest. That this is like Glenn saying, "No, I'm at the fucking table here, y'all."
Yeah,
like that. I'm putting
kaboom.
I am telling fucking Linklater what to do.
Yeah,
because this movie,
it's like kind of like an old school star vehicle. Like, you just have your guy here and just like showcase his goods.
And it's cool that he, that he's flexing his abilities, and with the end result being like a pretty interesting, like, I'd say winning piece of art. Like, it's, you know what I mean? Like, ultimately it's a very charming, fun movie to watch. And so, yeah, I'm sort of like, I'm happy with what we got. And I just like, my head is swirling with how bizarre it is.
I think it has a really good place in the year. Just comparing it to things like, The Fall Guy, Challengers, which is a much, much better movie than this, but it kind of has this more middle of the road spot, even something like Civil War, which is like the artsy auteur thing. You need this more grounded, approachable, kind of commercial type of movie that can be easily recommended to a lot of people.
What the clash is here? I just figured out this is the central clash of the movie, is that like this movie has an insanely dense plot, and it's made by the most meandering filmmaker of all time.
Yeah. It's a weird,
it's a filmmaker who's at best when he's just sort of following something.
Right.
You know what I mean? And there's just no time for that.
Like, and Everybody Wants Some. Probably my favorite scene is them just getting high, listening to Pink Floyd, and just talking a bunch of nonsense,
describing like what makes the fucking Pink Floyd amazing.
But great. But in this, we really don't have. We got to get moving. There's so much shit that happens in this, and it is entertaining, but it's just like, this felt like not much of a Linklater movie, except for like thematically, absolutely. But and then there are certain scenes I think that conversation with his ex-wife is an absolutely awesome scene, and I think a lot of humanity really seeps through. I think Glenn is at his best in that scene. Except for like the notes app scene, when he's going big and goofy, like he's really charming. I
loved every single one of the bits, the dress up bits. I cracked up every single time.
They just rock. I really hope, and not just because I have it and I'm deeply depending on it in our fantasy film league, but I really hope that Twisters is a mega hit. And I hope that is, because I think Hitman is like really, Anyone But You got a lot of the young people and a lot of women. I think
Glenn was trying in that movie. He was carrying that thing on his back, dude.
I think regardless of the quality, a ton of people saw that movie. And I think that kind of opened up one side of him. Something like this is going to get a lot of the mass audience, a lot of like the Netflix slop consumers. And I think that Twisters, if it can find the balance in the Venn diagram between like people who are like, oh, I remember Twister, that tornado movie, like the old people that'll come in and see it for that, and get like some of the younger people to come out. And if that can be a major hit, then I think that Glen Powell could be like a top 5 movie star that we have in our life.
We'll see it.
He could join the ranks of your Timmys, of your Zendayas, of your.
He's doing everything right now. Yeah. Like, I don't see a misstep right now. Like, you go from Top Gun Maverick to Anyone But You to this to Twisters. It's happening.
It's so funny because he's like older too. Like this, he really is like making his bones in Hollywood. Like he did not,
and he didn't do a superhero movie.
Yeah.
Like,
just love to see it.
He is nailing it.
He has a really great like facial equation of like, you know what I mean? Like unconventional, but still like you just absolutely want to look at him.
He's just a sexy chipmunk. Okay.
Yeah. And that's a huge part of what being a movie star is, which I think is the charm to me of this movie. It's like, I just want to look at him.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. I'm looking at a guy and I'm loving it.
Yeah. He's eating that ice cream, and she's hot too.
Yeah. We can't.
I fuck them both.
Babe, listen to me. I didn't say that. I didn't say a fucking thing. I think Glenn's hot.
And that's it.
Yeah.
I didn't. Which one is it?
Every time you hit that one, you also hit that other one.
I didn't do fucking shit. I didn't rig shit.
All right.
Well,
that's Hitman.
It's impossible how much that happens.
Guys, we got to wrap this up. I just watched Kristaps Porzingis just like taking step back threes in warm up practice.
The game is on.
I'm rock hard right now. It's pregame. They're about to tip off.
Oh,
so you got like another like 45 minutes in you now.
Yeah. Time for the categories.
Where Nicolas Cage fit in Hitman?
You know what bothered me more than it should have in this movie is, and I know they had to do this just for plot and it's played off as a joke, right? But the villainous guy when he sees them together, who is looking for any in he can get to get Glenn fired. But then when he sees them out together, he's like, oh yeah, man, I used to fuck tons of the people that I was,
right.
It's like that his motivations were all over the place in this movie. He just sort of needed to be. Really a lot of I think what I would call the shortcomings of this movie are like it feels like COVID-y. Like it was like, listen, we got this guy.
I do love the whole element of like, oh no, he's kicked off the force because he like beat the shit out of a teenager.
That was really great.
just like cop, on camera,
just cop thing.
Just some cop shit. It's like, oh, he's a racist piece of shit.
I do wonder about the existential part of this movie.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't really go anywhere, but it's a good thing to think about.
I think that does kind of like that is where a lot of the movie is made, is that idea, that's that central concept that's coming back to. And I think that's a very interesting concept. Yeah. Whether you think that the movie fully capitalized it or not, like that's an interesting angle.
But maybe it did a little bit. Maybe that's the epilogue. Maybe the epilogue is like, you
fully became Ron.
Right.
Yeah.
Or not fully, but enough to be different.
Yeah.
Right. And that's part of the takeaway of the movie is, are we all destined to be Garys for life, or can we maybe do a little Ron? Not a lot of Ron. Don't go full Ron. But maybe
never go full Ron.
Maybe just a little bit, right? So, lots to think about. That's Hitman. Ricky Links. I'd put it, towards the middle of my Linklater rankings.
His top is just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you can't deny the top, but this would be like right underneath that, underneath like Dazed and Confused and Boyhood, and then this.
Yeah, that top 10, bottom half top 10 kind of.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. All right. Well, I think that about does it for this week. Thank you all for listening. Please rate, review, subscribe, like, and comment. Let us know your thoughts on Hitman and everything else we talked about today. Check out WeBoughtAMic.net. Get every episode in your inbox. Donate, patreon.com/WeBoughtAMic. Thanks to all the donors. Next week, we continue our series on the films of Tom Cruise and Tom Hanks with Toy Story 1995. Is it the greatest animated film of all time? Yes,
we'll talk about it.
Is it
the most important animated film of all time?
Perhaps. Pixar in the news. We're going all the way back to their inception, to their first one. And then beyond that, Jerry Maguire, also around the corner. Is that the greatest movie of all time?
Yeah, now there we go. Now we're asking the questions.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Or it's some things we're uncovering.
Jerry Maguire is the
movie of all time.
It's the greatest. It's so good, man. I'm so excited.
Coming soon.
And
after your little fucking toys.
And we'll see which one's more important to film history.
Sorry, I didn't watch it. I was too busy being born that year. Grandpa
didn't stop me. I was like, Mommy, kick me to the theater as I was kicking her in.
Mid-year draft as well. Tease that. We'll be doing that. And then what? Kinds of Kindness might pop up.
Yeah.
Maxine.
It feels like you're just meandering to try and like drag this on at this point.
This is so funny.
Deadpool and Wolverine.
Go Celtics. Bye.
Bye.